RFK Jr. will survive the CDC chaos.
Oh, this is no. Easy. Easy.
I'm fully willing to admit
Yeah.
that this is maybe me just wish casting. So Christian, make the case for why this is true, not just we just want it to be true.
Sure. Well, a little bit of backstory. Last week, the president fired the CDC director, Dr. Susan Menarez. She had been in her position for just over a month. And from all reports, it has to do because she clashed directly with RFK and his stances on vaccines and this potential announcement we've got coming this month in September about an alleged link between all vaccines and autism. Just tell me if you've heard this before, right? And on top of that, they elevated Jim O'Neill, who has no medical experience, to run the centers. He was the deputy director of HHS. He is a Kennedy acolyte and, like his bestie, a noted vaccine skeptic. But what's interesting here is that during the cabinet meeting last Wednesday, Donald Trump had RFK, just a few seats down to his right side. He was the first Treasury Secretary to actually speak during the cabinet meeting. But the public outroar, coupled with CDC walkouts of high-level leadership and dozens, if not hundreds, of actual staff and scientists at the CDC campus in Atlanta, appears to have Donald Trump changing his mind a little bit because, just weeks after we got the news from FDA that they are going to, I'm not sure what the exact right word is, but essentially prohibit certain COVID vaccines from being administered to certain people and in certain jurisdictions over health concerns.
And to be clear, this apparently is already happening in practice.
Yeah, correct.
So, friend of the Examiner's, Eric Erickson,
I was about to bring him up,
His wife has terminal cancer, but she's on an experimental treatment that is basically frozen all of her tumors.
Mm-hmm.
So, it has not progressed, but it's not cured. So she is very high risk for COVID. But because she's under the age of 65, she cannot, if there's someone in a textbook that, you think, oh, a pre-existing condition that isn't just being elderly or obese, it would be terminal cancer, right?
That's correct.
And she can't get her COVID vaccine
because
it's right now just regulatory chaos. So it's not even oh, this might be happening in the future.
It's already happening.
So much for that medical freedom, right?
Yeah.
Denying a cancer patient her COVID vaccine that she wants, not that is mandated.
Correct. Fast forward to Monday, and we get, a truth from Donald Trump saying essentially, I want all of these vaccine producers and any medical group essentially who has this data to release all of their efficacy information to prove that these shots are safe. There's a lot going on here, but the first and foremost is that obviously Donald Trump appears to have split with RFK on this issue. I think looking back to 2020, Trump probably wishes COVID didn't happen because it probably cost him the White House for his second consecutive term. But even when he was out of office and some of his biggest surrogates on the 2024
when he was
campaign
in
trail,
political nadir, after January 6th in 2021, when he was barely making public news.
Correct.
He was still touting.
He was touting Operation Warp Speed, which, to be quite honest, I think is probably one of the most successful, large-scale medical crisis operations in the world.
I would argue
not just American history.
I would argue it's the most successful achievement of big science in history.
Okay.
It's the most successful private-public partnership. It quite literally epitomized what a bigger government conservatism would exist to do.
Yeah.
Also as
well
a national security force against the fact that this thing definitely leaked from a Chinese lab. I'm not saying it was a bioweapon, but clearly this thing came from a biolab, not a wet market. But with the Operation Warp Speed stuff, this I think is the issue. The RFK Jr. alliance with Trump was always purely pragmatic.
Yeah.
Trump is not a Maha person.
No.
He loves McDonald's and Diet Coke, and that's why
just look at his ankles, guys. Come on.
He's not a Maha person. That's almost one of the things I respect the most about Trump. Dude intermittent fasts and then binges on McDonald's, and then girl, same. But I think the way you stay in Trump's good graces is never to upstage the man.
Yeah.
Never upstage MAGA. Maha is not bigger than MAGA, and MAGA is whatever Donald Trump wants it to be.
Correct.
And the second you start taking aim at Operation Warp Speed, which in my opinion, that should have won Trump the Nobel Prize. If you just think about the sheer The estimate is in the tens of millions of lives saved.
Yeah.
Less because of access that we have to it in 2025, but like people forget in 2021, if we did not have vaccines, blue states would have locked down, and blue cities would have stayed locked down for maybe 4 or 5 more years.
Well, what's the normal regulatory track on a vaccine? It's like 5 to 8 years, right?
And he got it. We were having
months.
shots in
It was in
arms
months.
in the clinical trials in
Yeah.
March.
Yeah.
Right? So
I mean,
like
to be honest, he gave Joe Biden a huge gift.
he gave a massive gift, right?
Yeah.
And like so all of this is my Operation Warp Speed defense. One of the reasons why I think RFK Jr. doesn't pass muster is because he is just he's like the Waluigi version of Anthony Fauci. He is just Anthony Fauci with the same dogmatism, with the same God complex, with the same inability to treat people as intelligent beings who are capable of understanding studies and research and fact findings, just in the opposite direction. Just like replace, your 27th COVID jab with crystals and, non-seed oils and creatine and stuff that podcasters can grift to you. If, I'm not remotely going to defend the public health establishment's behavior during COVID. We know they did this in part to themselves by saying racism is a public health crisis. So while you can't, I know people who couldn't go to AA meetings who relapsed during COVID. And you could go to a George Floyd riot and the public health people said, okay. After the vaccines came out and we had the data to show that it meant that if you caught COVID, you would not get sick and die. They said you still need to wear a mask. They said the vaccines would prevent transmission. They didn't. But still, I got vaccinated, and that's great because it meant I never got sick. But some people who I know who did get sick, they just didn't get nearly as sick as people who weren't vaccinated, or they didn't get hospitalized. Everything about the learning loss. There were 12 ways to Sunday. Public health officials disgraced themselves. The solution is not to break the infrastructure of what public health does well.
Yeah. I really have nothing to add there. I think, as a metaphor, RFK wants to throw out not only the baby with the bathwater, he wants to get rid of the entire bath.
Yeah.
And have an outdoor shower, and like you mentioned, jam with some crystals or whatever. And look, if Donald Trump, noted Terminator in chief, is on a firing spree, I think he might want to look at HHS to, continue that streak. And I'll leave it there.